but it's interesting that this argument was being put forward. And Smith goes on to then use a really interesting example where he talks about Santa Claus. And most of us were told to believe in Santa when we were children. Many of us probably did. But we all lost our belief in Santa when many, and this is me, I mean, Smith talked about this, but this is my kind of summary of what he was saying. Many of us, when we found gifts addressed to us from Santa in our parents' bedroom closets, stopped believing in Santa. And the question is why? Because part of Santa's myth is that he is the explanation for the toys that appear under Christmas trees. Once we realize how the toys really end up there, we understand that all the rest is a fairy tale as well. Smith elaborates on the huge conspiracy one has to overcome belief in Santa. Not just mom and dad, but commercial outlets, media outlets, weather tracking when they track the sleigh on the nightly news, the Postal Service, who doesn't return your letter that's addressed Santa to the North Pole, and everyone at every level of our society seems to be in on this Santa conspiracy. So it's amazing that little children are able to finally figure this out on their own, really. But once we see those presents in the closet, there's no authority. Not the post office, not mom and dad, not Aunt Susie, not my brother who's a little bit older than me, not all my friends at school, not the weather service, no media outlet, and how many times I've been on Santa's knee, does not compare to finding those gifts in the closet. Once I find those presents in the closet, I say, oh man, the whole thing is a lie. And almost every kid that has had that belief shattered has had it shattered in a similar way, where they come across something and they say, oh, wow, this isn't real.
On a side note to this, I just as my own observation, I don't know that this is universally true or even the majority, what I've seen of kids who stop believing in Santa Claus, it's not just the discovery of evidence or being told something. In many cases, it's ridicule. The older kids make fun of the younger kids for, oh, you still believe in Santa Claus. And that ridicule from somebody who granted, they probably don't look up to those kids in the same way they look up to their parents, but they want to be the older kids, the ones who are in on the secret.
Right.
And so the ridicule from the older kids helps create the drive to discover the truth and what is going to become acceptable. And this is kind of secondarily reinforced by when the time a kid comes up to his parents and says, the kids at school are making fun of me because I believe in Santa Claus, and they said there's no Santa Claus, and I said that you would never lie to me. Is there Santa Claus? Well, the parents cave most of the time and will say, no, we actually were lying to you. So they end up getting the confirmation that they were looking for in addition to the evidence. But I think if there wasn't this ridicule, and if parents didn't immediately cave on the idea of Santa Claus, you might have people who believed in Santa Claus way up till the day they died.
Well, that was one of the things that he talked about, was he used a 6-year-old as the example. And what he was saying is that to any 6-year-old, when you have the post office honoring your letter to Santa, when you have the weather service tracking Santa's sleigh, when you have your parents telling you Santa Claus is real, any 6-year-old's belief in Santa is completely justified, even though it's absolutely untrue. And that was part of his point, was that you can have a justified belief that's not true. A belief can be justified but still be wrong.
Right.
And so Smith goes on to address logical versus material possibility. Oh, before I get into that, I just want to say I did add a little note that says, we don't reckon that Santa is using our parents as a means to deliver the presents, but we do tend to do that for God, and I'm not sure why. And it might be what you were just talking about.
Yeah, there is an anecdote that Russell's used a few times about this professor who's getting up there saying, there is no God and he doesn't have any power, and if there is a God, come strike me down. And a student gets up and walks over and punches him and knocks him down, and then makes the claim that God worked through him. That kind of ties in with the Santa's using parents as a distribution center.
Right.
Because,
Well, I mean, I almost picked the song by Jewel, where I think it's called "Our Hands" or something, and the first part of the song is actually pretty good about my hands are mine and I do good things with my hands.
Right.
And then at the end she starts saying that it's God's hands. And so the idea there is the same thing. It's like if you're if you're doing something and it's your hands, and you're simply saying, you know, this is God working through me, my point is, why don't you give Santa the same benefit of the doubt and say he uses mom and dad to put presents under the tree? Sometimes he can't drive all the way around the world. It's just too much of a logistical nightmare, and mom and dad have to put the presents down sometimes. So he sends them in advance, maybe FedEx or something, and mom and dad put the gifts under the tree, and that's how Santa gets them there.
Yep.
But that's not how it works. It only works that way with God. That's what it seems like to me.
Because God is magic.
Well, so is Santa.
Ah, but Santa's not real.
Isn't he a magic elf, right? It's mainly the fact that mom and dad and all the other social conspirators have fibbed, and that so many of our peers also believe, that leads us to accept belief in Santa. And it keeps us believing. This is very similar to Christianity. The fib in the case of Christianity might be well meant and actually more of an error than a fib, but it's our trust in our peers, family, and perceived authorities, such as elected officials, that keeps us believing.
And I'd add to the perceived authority list the Bible. We live in a society, with specifically for Christianity, but we live in a society where people are pretty much taught to respect religion and the Bible from birth, and it is given this position of authority and credibility that it does not actually deserve. We're talking about a book, for example, where we have, you know, the version that you have probably at home is a translation of a copy of a translation of a copy. We have no originals. We don't know who the authors are for the most part. There's no